morning and welcome back to the lecture series on tribal studies in India, interdisciplinary perspectives and approaches. So, today we are going to discuss women, the role of women and the position of women in tribal societies. Now, India's tribal communities actually demonstrate significant diversity across various aspects, which include their languages, physical features, population demographics, economic activities, cultural practices, their ethnicity, their general ethos as well as the social standing of women in each of these tribal communities. So, it is evident in the literary works from each indigenous groups how the women are positioned, how the women are located in these tribal societies or communities. So, for example, we have authors like Hansda Sovendra Shekhar and Mamang Dai. These two prominent tribal authors actually write in English. They are producing fictional works in English which talk a lot about the role and the position of the tribal women in their respective communities. Scholar and critic Virginius Khaka observes that focus on women within tribal studies has progressively gained importance and prominence in the recent times, largely stemming from a growing global awareness and concern for women's issues. Khaka further states that a survey by the Indian Anthropological Society in 1978 has revealed a significant gap in existing research on tribal women. So, while some scholars like Verrier Elwin and Christoph von Führer-Heimendorf have addressed tribal women's roles in their societies, most of the studies centering tribal scholarship have either neglected the question of woman or they have provided only limited and superficial insights into the women's status within tribal societies. So, studies focusing on tribal women have steadily proliferated in the last 2 decades of the 20th century. For example, in the 1988 work titled Tribal Women and Development written by J.P. Singh, N.N. Vyas and Ran Singh Man, we see that there are significant mention of the position of women. So, we also see that there is a 1993 special issue by Social Change which talks about the status of tribal women in India. These works actually are very important interventions and they present a holistic approach towards understanding the role of women in tribal societies. Research by scholars such as Abha Chauhan, Kamlesh Mann and Lucy Zihol offer a more intricate and accurate portrayal of the circumstances of tribal women as compared to earlier studies. Recent scholarship on tribal women increasingly aligns with the broader field of gender and cultural studies, moving beyond the traditional anthropological or ethnographic frameworks. According to Arup Maharatna, despite a substantial body of anthropological research that document the diverse characteristics and experiences of India's tribal populations, interdisciplinary and cross-disciplinary research which explore the demographic trends and the status of women within these communities have by and large remained limited and they leave a lot to be desired. They leave a lot of lacunae and loopholes that still need to be filled. Scholar and critic Aparna Mitra in her research on the status of women among the scheduled tribes in India writes, I quote Mitra here, "Tribal women display considerable heterogeneity in terms of their role and status within the tribal community. The same tribe in different regions may show significant differences in fertility patterns, educational attainment, labor force participation and other important variables." Unquote. So, Mitra has mentioned that the tribal women are active participants in all aspects of community life and they contribute significantly to the economy and society. Their labor force participation rates are markedly higher than those of non-tribal women. Similarly, Mann's study of the Bhil tribes reveals a high level of female participation in economic activities with almost more than 99% of women involved in agriculture and more than 93% in livestock rearing. Matrilineal tribal societies often prioritize female literacy and encourage women's participation in the workforce. Such economic contribution empowers women, endows them with some sort of agency, both in social, cultural as well as economic terms, and enhance their autonomy within the family and boost their involvement, their participation in community affairs. In many tribal societies, women are viewed as valuable and important economic assets with significant emphasis placed on their industriousness, their diligence and hard work as well as their dedication to their traditional roles. Verrier Elwin in this regard highlights the esteemed position of the Naga women who actively participate alongside their men in agricultural labor and significantly contribute to tribal councils. Similarly, Elwin observes that the Baiga women enjoy a high degree of social freedom and authority within their community. What is noteworthy here, Elwin also emphasizes the absence of any strict division of labor between men and women within the Baiga society. Further, we see that according to Stephen Fuchs, tribal women happen to be the key contributors to the tribal economy as they shoulder the majority of agricultural labor while also fulfilling their domestic duties on the side. Now, Mitra suggests, I quote again from Mitra, many tribal societies are matrilineal and women in such social structures enjoy inheritance rights and privileges that are absent in patriarchal societies, unquote. So, in this context, Führer-Heimmendorf's observation about Naga women in the northeastern states is quite remarkable. So, Heimmendorf says the following, I quote, many women in most civilized parts of India well envy the women of the Naga hills, their high status and their free happy life, and if you measure the cultural level of the people by the social position and personal freedom of its women, you will think twice before looking down on the Nagas as savages, unquote. In the same vein, J.H. Hutton has highlighted that Naga women enjoy substantial freedom and hold a high social standing within their community. Notably, these women possess the right to choose their spouses and are never forced into unwanted or some kind of marriage where they do not have their consent or consultation. Elwin corroborates the findings by Hutton, emphasizing the significant decision making power that is exercised by the Naga women within their society. As an example, we see that Minicoy in Lakshadweep was described as the female island. So, Minicoy has been described as a female island by Marco Polo because of its matrilineal social system. In the Minicoy society, property and lineage are inherited through the maternal line. Both men and women inherit their mother's house name, right. So, upon marriage, further we see that a man adopts his wife's house name, thereby reflecting the matrilineal system. Senior women play a pivotal role in household management and decision making. According to Gigi Kington and the World Bank report, literacy emerges as a crucial factor or as a parameter in determining the development of any given community. So, in that respect, one sees that for women, higher literacy rates are associated with significant improvements and development, including lower infant mortality rates, reduced fertility rates, as well as enhanced social and domestic status. So, when education or literacy becomes a marker of a community's development, from that point of view, the tribal women, especially from the northeastern states, particularly Mizoram, Meghalaya and Nagaland, exhibit significantly higher literacy rates, having a substantial tribal population over there in all these states. So, we see that the literacy rate is actually quite high in the northeastern tribal states. In their study on literacy rates and schooling among the tribal women, Aparna Mitra and Pooja Singh have observed that the tribal women in urban areas of Mizoram exhibit the highest literacy rates in entire India, surpassing even those that are observed in Kerala, Kerala being a state that is renowned for its high female literacy rates, right. So, Mizoram actually scores higher than Kerala as far as women's literacy rate is concerned. On the other hand, tribal literacy rates are considerably lower in states such as Rajasthan, Orissa and Madhya Pradesh, despite these states having a relatively small tribal population within the overall demographics. However, these states collectively account for a significant portion of India's total tribal population. Mitra and Singh's research also states and observes that psychologically the scheduled tribes often experience a subtle but pervasive form of marginalization, a continual marginalization of the scheduled tribes that history has witnessed. This passive indifference towards the tribal populace manifests in different ways, including limited access to quality education, restricted social participation as well as restricted access to their ancestral lands. While increased female labor force participation and literacy are often surmised as factors that enhance women's autonomy and overall agential position, a study of tribal women from the Garhwal region by Maharatna reveals a different kind of a reality. Despite such factors, sociocultural norms significantly influence the extent of women's autonomy within the household space, right. So, we do not see a straight line actually that kind of defines this cause and effect. So, it is not always like labor force participation by the female tribal population always ends up in enhancing or boosting their agency and autonomy. The Garhwal region tribals are an example of such a case where women do participate in the labor force, however, it does not really add to their autonomy, right. So, tribal women writers are increasingly making significant literary contributions, they are taking control of their own narratives, and so the narrative voice has now shifted from someone talking from outside of the threshold of tribal ecosystem to someone who is speaking and letting out experiences from within the ecosystem. So, the focus has now shifted from being subjects of research, the tribal women who have traditionally been subjects of research by outsiders, to becoming active agents in knowledge production, right. This knowledge could be historical knowledge and this could also be creative writing. So, all kinds of knowledge being produced from within the tribal society are considered as in fact extremely valuable documents that edify us, that teach us about how the tribal societies have been and how they are metamorphosing with the changing times, with the changing situations. So, drawing inspiration from folklores and traditional songs, the tribal women's writings offer unique perspectives on gender equality, social justice, as well as the challenges that they have historically faced and that they are still facing. For example, Alice Ekka, described as India's first female tribal storyteller, Ekka powerfully portrays women's struggles for rights and self-respect while simultaneously exploring the nuances, the complexities of gender dynamics within tribal society. Contemporary tribal literature encompasses a diverse range of themes, including traditional epistemologies, feminist perspectives, as well as critiques of reductive narratives, which have historically, marginalized or in a way epistemically speaking incarcerated or limited, greatly limited the Adivasi women. So, through their own writings and activism, the tribal women are now asserting their agency and challenging the dominant narratives that have reduced them, that have somewhat limited them, that have somewhat portrayed them in a diluted or romanticized fashion in a wrong way, and now they are talking about their own lives and experiences which are like voices coming from within. Sunita Purti writes that tribal women authors like Rose Kerketa, Vandana Tete, Jacinta Kerketa, Vasavi Kiro and Alma Grace have significantly contributed to feminist discourse through portraying their varied experiences as well as their everyday, their day-to-day struggles as Adivasi women, and they have presented their unique perspectives, thereby enhancing, greatly enhancing the tribal feminist scholarship, taking it to another level altogether, taking it, making it achieve another milestone altogether. Jacinta Kerketa's poetry poignantly depicts the disposition of Santhal lands by the politicians as well as the government conniving in such activities, the government actually supporting such activities alongside the sexual exploitation that the tribal women regularly face. Further, a writing such as Becoming Me, which came out in 2014 by Regina Marandi, explores themes of resistance, empowerment, as well as the layered identities of the tribal women. So, what is noteworthy, the narrator's position in Regina Marandi's Becoming Me and her I is that of a tribal female who accounts about her otherness, her marginalization at several levels in terms of her gender, ethnicity, class as well as literacy. So, the narrative becomes the metamorphosis of the protagonist Leah happens through the several layers of liminality and fragmentation that she posits and that she undergoes at different stages in her life. At school, Leah is identified and marked as a Kisku Santhal, one of the largest tribes in India, by her political science teacher. While the Santhals suffer marginalization once by the Dikus or the non-tribals, and then again by the majority tribes from the northeast, the majority tribes in Assam, and there is a minimal assistance that they are receiving from the government. Leah herself is further jeopardized in terms of being a female member from a minor tribal group. So, she is a tribal, she is from a minor tribal group. So, in Assam we see that there is this Bodo Santhal conflict constantly arising from time to time. The Santhals are a minority tribe, they are T tribes, and they are not receiving as much attention regarding tribal status and facilities that this status entails as much as the Bodos receive. And so, being from a minor tribal group and further being a female member from such a group, right? She faces marginality, she faces jeopardy at several levels, several across several layers. So the narrative of her becoming therefore happens through piecing together the different shards of her identity which emerge at the crossroads of her community, her femininity, her habits, beliefs and pedigree. Many tribal movements that have shaped the contemporary struggles were integral components of the Indian independence movement. Folklore accounts of the Santhal Hul rebellion celebrate the revolutionary spirit of Phulo Murmu and Jhanu Murmu, the two Santhal sisters who reportedly killed 21 British troops before their martyrdom. And during the Hul Utsav or the Hul Parab, their status as martyrs from the community is celebrated every year, right. So, this Hul festival that takes place in the end of June, on 30th of June, this is when we see that all the heroes from the community, including the Murmu sisters, are commemorated and celebrated. Despite their significant contributions, however, these female heroes such as Phulo Murmu and Jhanu Murmu are often marginalized in the historical narratives. In the mainstream history, we do not find their mention within the corpus of anti-colonial struggles. In the larger narratives of anti-colonial struggles, they are invisibilized, which reflect the societal constraints that limit the women's self-identity, their self-esteem, their self-expression within the larger male-centric schemes. The male dominated society tends to marginalize them, give them a very peripheral position within the anti-colonial struggle narrative, right. In that discourse, they happen not to posit a very strong voice or a very strong position. According to ecofeminist Vandana Shiva, women, particularly those who are closely connected with nature, such as the tribal women, exhibit a deeper understanding of the ecological issues. Their strong social and cultural ties to the flora and the fauna, to the forests, the water resources as well as the land, drive their efforts to protect these vital resources. In this regard, we need to mention the Koil Karo movement, which was rooted in Gandhian principles of non-violence and truth, and it aimed to reclaim the tribal rights. However, women's resistance against the CRPF, which was the first Satyagraha Andolan organized on the 23rd of March 1994, was characterized by its stubborn and radical nature, which demonstrated their commitment to land and nature protection. So, we see that the tribal women during the Koil Karo movement come forward and resist against the CRPF people, and this is considered as their first Satyagraha Andolan. It was not violent in nature, but it was a very radical expression, and the message sent out was a strong support for land protection and preservation of natural resources. Such fierce defense, born from their deep emotional connection with land, forests and water resources, aligns with and augments and amplifies the principles and the cause of ecofeminism. So, talking about the status of tribal women, in an interview with Tariq Anwar, Lakshmi Mandi describes that the daily reports highlight rampant injustices meted out to the tribals, including land encroachment, violence as well as sexual assault meted out to the tribal women. The non-tribals have historically and traditionally treated the tribals with contempt, labeling them as uncivilized and untouchable people. So, the Adivasis' physical characteristics, their physiognomic features and their livelihoods have been viewed as as something not worthy of a civilized society. They have become objects of hatred within non-tribal societies, and they have been often relegated to daily labor activities, and they have till very recent times they have been denied any role in leadership and administrative positions. Tribal women face double marginalization because they are experiencing even greater vulnerability than the Dalit women. When we compare the plight of the tribal women, we see that their position is even more vulnerable than the Dalit women. They endure discrimination both within as well as outside of their homes. They are facing, violence from within the community as well as in the hands of the non-tribals. While tribal women generally play crucial roles in economic, social and cultural spheres, thereby exhibiting higher work participation rates as compared to their non-tribal counterparts, their experiences are far from homogeneous. Factors such as regional variations, environmental positions and migration patterns have significantly influenced their roles, status and overall well-being and their their location, their position in the larger community. One of the examples of tribal populace's exploitation and their plight, their jeopardy and vulnerable position in the larger society is the tragic suicide of Chuni Kotal. So, one of the cases in point that actually explains how the tribals are treated in the larger society is the tragic suicide of Chuni Kotal. Chuni Kotal, who is a tribal student harassed by upper caste teachers, and it exemplifies, it becomes a living example of the barriers, the difficulties to education that the tribal girls face at a day-to-day level. So, how it is difficult for them to go and participate in so-called mainstream institutions. The process of mainstreaming is fraught with difficulty, and they are not accepted the way they are. They are often harassed by the school authorities, and like I said, Chuni Kotal's tragic suicide becomes a case in point that explains their plight, their vulnerability. Sexual oppression and poverty force some of the tribal women into prostitution. Their grievances are often dismissed, they go unnoticed even by the authorities, and such experiences have been depicted in Lakshmi Mandi's poem One Day in My Life. Now, talking about the status of tribal women, there are different scholars looking at the tribal women from different positions. A number of tribal female scholars would assert that the women's position in tribal societies is something very positive, something that should be emulated by other societies. It points to a very egalitarian community that the tribals enjoy. So, in the words of Sanchita Kisku, I quote, indigenous Santhal community is in history and essence an egalitarian community where women are regarded highly. In every sphere of life they enjoy equal respect with men. Women's presence is normative for any religious or cultural performance. Therefore, it is understood that Santhal women have occupied an important place in social and religious functions, unquote. Further, and similarly, Timothy Hemrom would say, I quote, the social position of Santhal women is far higher than that of women in many other ethnic groups in India, unquote. However, other non-tribal sources have different things to say in the same regard. For example, L. O'Malley observes, I quote Malley here, the religion of the Santhals is essentially a man's religion women are not allowed to be present at sacrifices except when they are offered in the house to the ancestors and family gods, and then only if there are no men to help these sacrifices, unquote. Similarly, A.B. Chaudhary states the following regarding the status of the Santhal women in Santali rituals. I quote Chaudhary, "The women may take part in ritualistic dances at Jahir Than and Manji Than after the rituals are over, but they cannot actively associate themselves with the worship," unquote. So, this this marginalization from within the community by the male counterparts has often led to women forming their own cohorts, their own secret conclaves, and they have been often very often in fact accused of practicing. So, witch hunting is or at least till long time has been a rampant practice, and we could say a malpractice among many tribal communities, beating up of and even killing of women on mere suspect that they are witches. This has been there till a long time. It is going away, but then the problem still remains in many tribal societies. According to a well-known Santhal myth, the Santhal women had deceived their ancestor, their forefather and deity Marang Buru by disguising as their respective husbands, and they had got hold of the knowledge of witchcraft from Marang Buru. So, they had dressed up as their husbands and they had taken the knowledge of witchcraft from Marang Buru. As compensation, Marang Buru had afterwards conferred the knowledge of witch finding to the Santhal men. So, this also has a very gendered angle where women are the source of problems. So, women are the ones that are practicing witchcraft, whereas the witch doctors are usually males who cure these women. This myth actually typecasts any knowledge or agency presented by the Santhal female as something negative. So, if a woman possesses any knowledge outside of the basic domestic roles, that is understood in terms of disease, damage and death. In other words, that is witchcraft. So, that would actually cause disruption of social balance, whereas the skills possessed by the men from the community is understood in terms of diagnosis, regulation and thereby preservation and status quo of the larger society. So, the men are actually seen as the Ojha. So, in this regard, Vinita Damodaran's study reveals that witch hunting is the result of, I quote Damodaran, "pressures of rapid ecological changes combined with the erosion of common property rights and deforestation," unquote. In the case of the Adivasi communities, the weakening of traditional collective ethos, the emergence of feudal land relations, exploitations by middlemen as well as the moneylenders, most of them coming from the Hindu community. These money lenders who have exploited the the tribals are mainly from upper caste Hindu society, as well as the development of mercantile capitalism. All these factors together have contributed to the breakdown of social safety mechanisms around the vulnerable section of tribal people, especially the widows and the single women. All these exploitative mechanisms, these mercantile capitalism, feudal land relations have greatly affected, greatly exposed the widows and the single women from tribal societies to jeopardies, to new forms of exploitation. The failures of land reform policies, indebtedness, the permanent state of indebtedness owing to lack of literacy in many tribal villages, and the permanent state of poverty where even the government, even any larger body does not come forward to help, land alienation and cultural changes as perpetuated by technological development. All of these factors have caused an overall decline in the domestic economy of the aboriginal people. Further, within the community we see that alcoholism and gambling among the tribal men, wife beating and abandonment, as well as material and sexual exploitation of these women become factors that function towards the detriment of the women's position in industrial as well as agricultural labor. So, all the outside influences have drastically changed the rural society at large, as well as they have also transformed the domestic space, as in the man and woman relationship, the familial space, the domestic space, the rural culture, everything changes because of outside influences. All these factors have not only aggravated gender tensions, but also raised a fear and suspicion, a permanent suspicion of the female sexuality, and they have effected a steady rise in cases of witch accusation and witch hunting and very violent forms of punishment associated with such suspicions, such huntings. So, as a way of concluding, despite their significant contributions, the tribal women continue to face different forms of challenges, including limited access to education, healthcare and economic opportunities. Therefore, it is crucial to recognize the strengths and resilience of these tribal women and understand how their identities are shaped and how their identities churn out at the crossroads of agency as well as oppression. I would stop my lecture here today. Let us continue with another round of discussions in our next lecture. Thank you.